Hello from the scorched surface of Titan. This is Push Your Glasses Up. I'm Mikey.
And I'm Reena, and I'm still recovering.
Yeah, this was a traumatic experience.
Okay, well let me just say, we know about how I am with movies, and the whole time I was sweating, and I don't really sweat, and
Well,
I did almost cry. I almost cried.
Well, you didn't cry. You just let it out of your pores.
Yeah, just that it was like my body was crying.
Yeah.
My whole body was crying. Yeah, and it had nothing to do with like the small ice dunks that I chugged before I went in there. No, this was pure movie anxiety like I've never experienced before. I must have like I couldn't like sit still. I was like twitchy in my seat. It was just. And then I was going to go to the gym afterwards, but I was so emotionally drained after that movie. I went and put myself down for a nap. Like, my roommate was a little concerned about me because I came home and I didn't say anything to her. I just went and laid down.
I should preface, we're clearly talking about the Amy Schumer movie, I Feel Pretty.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I didn't realize it was going to be such a hard hitter.
Yeah. No, this is obviously Infinity War.
Yes. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk non-spoilers first, give you a warning to turn it off, and then we'll go into, like, the meat of it. The real deal.
Yeah, I'm going to wager it's about 10 minutes before that happens.
Yeah. So apologies to anyone who thought this was going to be your soundtrack to your commute.
Oh, well, if they've listened to us before, they know we get into the spoilers, so it's fine.
Specifically, probably Pete and Steve. So,
yeah.
Guys, just so you know.
All right. So, this is a good movie.
It's
a very good movie.
It's an amazing movie. It's so rare that a movie lives up to the hype. And, like, in fact, like, there were so many callbacks to the rest of the MCU that I didn't even realize until they were, like, showing a bunch of different like Marvel movies on FX, and I was watching the first Guardians movie, and I was like, holy fucking shit, they totally referenced that in Infinity War.
Yeah.
Like, I'd forgotten.
Yeah, like, without going into specifics of what they are, there's like...
We can say Kevin Bacon. Bacon.
Well, and then there are, like, references to, like, with certain characters referencing back to, like, Age of Ultron that I sort of expected them to just gloss over, even though it's, the last movie in this specific franchise. But yeah, I can't really, like, there's not much that I was down on at all. There were just a couple of shots that I was just like, the budget for the CG wasn't in this one, but it went into Thanos, so I'm fine.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
I
thought they did a great job with the CG on Thanos. I thought they did a great job with the character development on Thanos.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is this movie is a Thanos movie.
Mm-hmm.
Less an Avengers movie. And
I can agree with that.
It's interesting because, like, with Black Panther, Killmonger is an understandable and justified villain, where Thanos is an understandable but not justified villain. So
yeah,
it's really, in the Marvel universe, we don't typically get understandable villains that often. So to get two in a row is pretty outstanding.
Well, it was about time, though, because we've had enough disposable villains. Like, the only one that was, like, worth anything was Loki.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was nice to, like, have a villain whose mission even if it's terrible, we understand the logic behind it.
Yeah.
And so we can kind of be, like, someone who's just not out to destroy things for the sake of just destroying things. And I think it's been a long time since... Right? I just watched that one, too.
Yeah.
That's what made me, like, think of it, is that, Thanos had a very clear mission that you understood. It's, even though it's wrong,
yeah,
it makes sense, and he can see his side of it. But man, this was like this movie was it was a lot. I'm actually going to go see it again this week with my coworkers, and I'm
Hmm.
glad because it was just it's so much movie to take in, and it just doesn't stop. There's no thing I would have cut out of it that didn't need to be there.
Yeah. No, it's I can't believe how well, like, going into it, I think we all expected it was going to be this sort of ominous, dark movie just front to back, and it was, but at the same time it was also like it had its moments of lightness, it had its, like, moments of comedy that they weren't entirely separated.
Hmm.
Like, there were extremely funny moments that were intertwined with extremely poignant moments.
Oh, totally. Like Stephanie, my roommate, was just talking about because she just saw it like today. Was talking about how the banter between Peter and Tony
Yeah.
was just like spot on, just spot on.
Yeah, when they first meet up, it's pretty amazing how like that is some fast dialogue.
Hmm.
Yeah, I man, it's hard to talk about this movie without going into spoilers.
But even, well, I mean, you know what it is? It's like, so we knew this was going to be a big film. We knew it was going to be very ominous in tone. But at the same time, I think something we didn't realize would be there was so much heart. There's just so much heart in small moments. They don't give it to us in big, grandiose, and maybe like a little bit here and there, but like,
Yeah, you get
there's
a couple
just,
fight sequence moments that are like that show you sort of heart of the character fight
or
sequences and
like,
stuff. But
this isn't like a spoiler because we knew this was going to happen for Black Panther, but like when Steve sees Bucky,
yeah,
just that hug, you know,
yeah,
like that little moment right there, or you know, the stuff with Peter and Tony going back and forth, and like how their relationship has obviously developed since Spider-Man Homecoming,
yeah.
or like I'm trying to think of other like ones that aren't giving away anything, or you know,
The
uh,
Vision and Scarlet Witch stuff is amazing, and we'll get into more
mm-hmm.
detail on a lot
or
of these
or
later.
even
But
the Thor and Loki
yeah,
part, yeah, like, but these are all like they weren't like they didn't drag them out. They weren't like, I mean, I guess like Vision and Scarlet Witch, there was like a lot going there because there was like they're filling in a lot, but where all these other relationships we've seen over multiple movies,
yeah,
but
and like particularly with them, and even more so with Scarlet Witch, I think she was finally used to her potential,
mm-hmm.
as opposed to the last couple of times we saw her. Uh, like, she was fine in Civil War, where everybody was kind of like used a little bit. Age of Ultron, I think, was a little underwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
For obviously for both her and Quicksilver, considering he was like throwaway they needed a death, so they put a new character in. Um, yeah, there, like, every character got a moment, every character got some weight, every character got some comedy. It's the amount of like this. I don't think this will be like spoiler stuff, but like, this movie is about balance. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when
Oh,
when you get
that's
down
honest.
to it.
That's the whole theme of this
Yeah.
film is balance in so many in the way the film is constructed and the storyline. It's like everything is about a balance.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's a spoiler. I think that's an overarching theme.
Once we get further and we get more literal about it, you'll see that it's, a little spoilery if we get into details, but in the vagueness, it is like the plot's about balance, and they manage to, on the meta side of it, balance everything in this movie very well.
Which is a monumental task. I
Yeah.
mean, you had 23 characters that all had a chance to shine.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just didn't think, and even like sort of side-ish characters or characters we don't know very well, like Wong from Doctor Strange,
Yeah.
like still got their chance, you know? So, I don't know. I just it's a lot of movie, but it's amazing. And yeah, I had to process
Yeah.
after all of that. it takes all. It's like not only does it have like a balance of like character and warmth and ominous and this that and the other thing, but also like you literally go through all of your emotions. Someone should write up a post about like the 12 stages that you go through while watching Avengers Infinity War. Like there's happiness, there's grief, there's excitement, there's anxiety. Like
there's hungry,
yeah,
little horny. There's a little horny.
there's a little horny. There's a little horny.
Yeah, I cannot like even like I have to go back and watch it again to really like even fully grasp how much was going on in this movie. I watched it at
sure.
like it's like 12:30 in the morning. But
I watched it at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
So woo.
Yeah. And then I watched it at 12:30 in the morning, and then I went to work at 8 in the morning. So that was fun.
Oh jeez.
All right. Do we make the transition now? Is now spoiler time?
Yeah. Dilute. Spoilers ahead. Turn this off. We've warned you.
Steve.
Don't get mad at us. Don't get mad at us. We told you.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we're going into it.
So.
Fuck, they went with that ending. They went with the ending.
Yeah.
I didn't know if if the Russos were gonna have the balls to do it and just fucking blow up half the universe, but they did.
And here's the thing. Everything that Thanos does, the whole balance thing, is he says he's wiping out half of everything. So he takes out about half of the people in this movie, but he doesn't necessarily... It's a weird thing because everyone keeps saying they're dead, and they're not.
They're not. They just don't
exist. They've been wiped from existence. Exactly. So...
Which he considers merciful because there's no pain. They just literally disappear. They just fade out into oblivion.
Yes, although the one person that knows what's happening because he has spider sense... Well, there's two people that know what's happening because one of them saw the future and one of them has spider sense. Peter is the only one that's scared in that moment instead of confused. Because he's aware of what's happening to him because he, those hairs on his arms, they lift up. But yeah, but like, how do we even want to like go through it? Do we just start at the beginning?
I think we should compare, since we started with the end, where that comes from, in the differences from in the comic books, because in the comic books, the reason that Thanos destroys half the universe is to impress death. However, this time, when we were talking about balance, he's literally trying to balance the universe. And it's also his reason for wiping out planets, where he sees planets that are struggling, people are starving, people are dying. He immediately kills off half the population, and the other half of the population tends to thrive. So he thinks he's actually in the right, and he's restoring balance to the universe, which he believes has a finite amount of resources. So that's where his head is at in this. And I don't know why he believes that this is his job, but he saw the destruction of his own home planet, and that's been kind of his motivation. And that's why we can kind of relate to it more than he's just trying to oppress a chick.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Right? Because like Infinity Gauntlet's not like, okay.
Yeah, because he it's straight up like is said that like it mentions the Eternals a little bit in there and sort of his lineage with them, and he is under the assumption that he's pretty much Jor-El from Superman. Like he instead of letting a world die, he thinks he needs to find the solution of culling half of the population in order to save it. It's a strange version of sort of the same story.
But he sees it as merciful, and he sees it as indiscriminate. Like, he's not going to wipe out all the poor and starving people. He's just going to wipe out half the people indiscriminately.
Yeah. Well, it's also part of the fact that he sees himself as I don't want to say a god or the god or whatever, but he sees himself as sort of this almighty being that is like, oh, the burden is on me and I'm the one that has to do it. It's like, oh, you don't have to, bro.
But we
You're
get
just a
that
kid, big California raisin.
but he really believes it.
Yeah.
And you get that, and he really thinks that he's not doing it for like glory. In fact, he loses so much.
Yeah.
Like if you think about him as a character separated out, like this quest to do this thing that he feels he's driven to do costs him pretty much everything.
Yeah.
So he's not doing it for himself, which is he is and he isn't.
Yeah.
You know?
This is I feel like the it's strange because I was reading something that involved when they find the soul stone and he kills Gamora. So later on in the movie when he has his vision which is I want to say sort of like a side effect of that, basically. When it cuts back and she's a little girl again, and she says, "You did it, but at what cost?" I feel like that is sort of his representation of death, instead of being in love with the personification of death. It is the whole like culling thing, but on top of that, some of the soundproofing just came down and hit my microphone. I think part of that is also representing that Gamora has been dead since he took her. Like, she's not been the proper Gamora since that day. And so it's so straight. Like, his whole life he's been working to get back to the little girl that he thought he was taking in a good way. And it's like, this is where the Thanos story gets like so heavy and complicated and hard to suss out, because it
does. It really does. Especially when they're talking in the throne room. And she's like, I hated my life. And he's like, I know, you told me.
Yeah.
And it's like, she told him she was miserable. And yet he still like trusted her to find the soul stone. And he still trained her. And we already knew she was his favorite out of all of his adopted children, right?
Yeah.
But it almost like it didn't matter that she hated him. And he could have killed her at any point. He didn't. When she bailed, he kind of just let her go.
Yeah.
He lent her out to Ronan, and then, I feel like he could have come at any point and leveled her.
Yeah.
Like, out of spite, out of anger, but he never did. He never came at her like that. And I don't think it's because he had this ultimate plan of, like, throwing her off a cliff.
No, because he didn't realize
He didn't know.
it. Yeah.
He didn't know that. And I don't think it's because she had the knowledge of the Soul Stone. Because he didn't even know that till later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he never pursued her. For someone who's so crazy and the mad Titan and whatever, he kind of let her go. And I guess that kind of does prove the point that maybe he really did love her as a daughter. Even if she never believed it.
Yeah.
As fucked up as it is.
Because that's the thing, is that whole conversation in the throne room, it played to me as like a teenager and their father like coming to grips with the relationship that was never perfect, but like whatever.
But even when she thinks she kills him in the collector's vault,
it's still, yeah.
And she cries, she breaks down and like loses her shit. So it's like they have a very complicated relationship.
Yeah. Also
but again, it gave it more weight. It gave him, he had stuff to lose.
Yeah.
That he cared about. Not everybody around him is disposable. I think that was an important point to make, because we know he had the Chitauri and they're like whatever, and then Ronan's like whatever, and then even his little crew of what are they called? What are his order? That the
Are they
Black
the Black
Order?
Order in the movie, or are they
Yeah.
just the children of Thanos in the movie? I can't remember.
But even they like don't matter like she matters.
Yeah, and yeah, in so when they go to here's the other little fun thing: we all get a surprise cameo in that moment with the Soul
Hey,
Stone.
hey, Red Skull, how you hanging? Apparently, Red Skull became a Dementor.
All right. Um, Clearly not Hugo Weaving. It is Ross Marquand from The Walking Dead. Because he's very good at doing impressions. Although this wasn't very like impression-y to me. But they wanted somebody that could do a cartoon, but not overly cartoon German voice. But yeah, I that was just a cool little bonus in that scene. I was only watching it with like 6 other coworkers, so I didn't get to hear an audience react to that. I'm sure it would have been cool.
At 9 in the morning, there wasn't much reaction from the audience. There were some points.
Yeah.
That wasn't one of them where people like clapped and cheered. But they were like, I was like, oh, okay. Hey,
Yeah.
man, I guess you didn't die. I didn't think that you did, but now, well, it made sense now because at the time we didn't know that the Tesseract was the space gem. So it would
But
make sense that
there was a lot of theorizing that he was just transported because if you don't see a body, it's never finite. Yeah, where do we go from here?
so we were talking about Thanos, his relationship with Gamora, and like the sacrifice that he had to make. So, I mean, I guess everyone can put together at this point that he did in this film get all 6 Infinity Stones in the Gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with that, and let's talk a little bit about his collection of those because I think those are some pretty heavy moments.
So off
So,
screen, Xandar got blowed up.
yep.
So that's where he got the power. And he tricked the Guardians into coming to sort of find him
Mm-hmm.
by going and already destroying Nowhere. And great small moment for Benicio del Toro.
It was nice that they worked him in somehow.
Yeah, even if he is more than likely already dead. Yeah, I liked that scene a lot, particularly for the
The
Drax.
proper the Drax
Yeah,
and
the Drax stuff.
the proper use of the reality gem too was nice because
Yeah.
I feel like in the dark because I even having not seen this I wrote a post for work comparing digital experience practices to the Infinity Stones but I used the basis for my reality gem explanation on how it was used in Thor: The Dark World which like doesn't really make sense. It was nice that it was used in like a more traditional sense here. So
I mean, it was still
kind
used
of,
in a proper sense.
but not as
Just
much to like
not as much of the reality bending as much as it was used for like the transport aspect of it. But
yeah.
yeah. But yeah, some of the things that happened of like turning Mantis and Drax into like ribbons and cubes, I guess it's not really cubes,
Mm-hmm.
but that's like straight out of the books. That's straight out of the Infinity Gauntlet book. It's obvious it's not those 2 characters in the book, but and like the bubbles and stuff is
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was intentional for like some sort of callback to him thinking Gamora is still a child, so he turns things into bubbles around her. But if it is, it's a nice touch. Kind of what my thought went to, just because like not that many people play with bubbles as full grown adults. So,
Mm-hmm.
But the whole thing with Peter and Gamora in that and leading up to that, the conversation they have beforehand, where she makes him promise to kill her if Thanos gets his hands on her. That was So Zoe Saldana has some of the best acting moments in this movie. Between the stuff before Thanos kills her and the stuff with Peter, those moments are genuinely heartbreaking, and she's able to convey much more than these movies have ever really held in the terms of how devastating that is for these characters. I'll talk about my favorite moment of acting is not these two, but these are up there with the best ones in the movie. But yeah, the conversation that Peter and Gamora have are it's just absolutely gut wrenching, because Peter's doing that thing where he's trying to kind of like joke his way out of the conversation, and she's just not having it, to the point where she's not letting him talk. She puts her hand over his mouth to just say, no, there's no talking your way out of this one. You have to promise me. Yeah.
And you know what? He actually attempts to keep that promise.
It takes
him a while.
Yeah.
He should have just
understandable, but also yeah.
But he does pull the trigger.
Yeah. The bubbly trigger.
He did try.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got power, we got reality, space. We know Loki took out of the vault in Thor Ragnarok, and so poor Asgard has had the shittiest year.
Well, time is different in space, so maybe it wasn't a year. Who knows?
The shittiest point in time, wherever it may be.
Yeah.
But Loki tried. Well, I mean, like, did he really think it was going to work? That he was going to take out Thanos so easily when Hulk can't even take out Thanos?
I think it's just that he did what he could. I don't know if he thought it would work, but he knew, like, at one point, I think he looks over, and you can see it in his face where he's like, I know what I'm facing right now, but I have to try. Yeah.
So he gave him the Tesseract and tried to kill him, but Thanos killed Loki. Finally, Loki is, like, probably dead for real this time.
Yeah.
I mean, because that death came way before everybody else melted away. Like, he was literally, like, choked to death by the gauntlet.
Well, and it also goes to show, like, Thanos already wiped out half of the Asgardians, and so now he's wiped out half of the two brothers.
Yep.
So I'm gonna assume that one is real.
I also didn't think that Thanos was gonna let him get away with the massive fuck up of losing the Mind Gem and the Battle of New York and all the Chitauri that he lost, and he owed him a lot at that point anyway. Yeah. So I think even if he didn't attempt to assassinate him, it wouldn't have ended well for Loki.
Yeah. On the plus side, though,
Thor is also having a hell of a year.
Yeah. On the plus side, though, we're kind of led to believe that our new friends from Thor Ragnarok were some of the ones that got away. Because there's no evidence of Valkyrie or Korg being absolutely demolished in this crew. So, so yeah, we're led to believe that they are out there. Granted, who knows what happens with the ashiness, but yeah. So there's that. I guess we go to Earth now.
Well, let's go to time next. So, because that's on Titan, and then we end on Earth.
It's on Earth first.
We already talked about how he got the Soul Gem, so we'll count that in the Gauntlet as well.
Yeah.
So Time Gem we know is kept by Doctor Strange, and he tells Tony and Peter, like, listen, if it comes down to protecting this or protecting you guys, like, you guys are out. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I love how he and Tony do not get along because there's just too much ego in one space.
The Beard Bros never got it together.
No, they didn't. It was kind of awesome, though, because I feel like most people buy into Tony's bullshit and they kind of, like, go with him on it. But also Stephen Strange is, like, just as bad, so he has no tolerance.
You can't bullshit a bullshitter.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually I really liked, even before they get up to Titan, I loved the stuff they did on the streets of New York, the action stuff they did in there. The way that Spidey comes in,
Mm-hmm.
and
Hi, Mr. Stark.
yeah,
Oh, I was on a field trip.
yeah, they did really, really, really good stuff with Spidey's commentary through the whole thing. And
I wanted more Spidey and Star-Lord. I wanted to see like the two pop culture like aficionados just talk about it. They did a little bit.
I like what they did because Peter Parker likes the good things from pop culture, and Peter Quill likes the just cheesy 80s stuff from pop culture. Mm. So they talk about it a little bit.
Super old movie.
Yeah. Yeah, they brought that back for doing the alien thing.
I think if he's talking about original aliens, I think that's okay. He can call it a super old movie.
No, yeah, it's
79. I think he's allowed.
I think it was specifically Aliens.
Oh, Aliens. Mm.
Which would have been the early 80s too, so it might even be I'm going to have to double check this. It was 86.
He was really just talking about Alien Covenant.
Yeah, that super old 1-year-old movie. But yeah, the back and forth once they're on the ship, we just skip around a little bit here. But once they're on the ship, going up to Titan, the back and forth stuff when the Guardians come in and Tony is talking with Peter Quill because they're sort of in a standoff because they don't know who each other are, and just the quippiness of, where are you from? Earth? I'm from Missouri. That's on Earth. Like that that shit was fucking amazing. Like all of the back and forth in that whole scene was just fantastic. And like even Drax has like way funnier shit. Like his reactions in the Guardians movies are usually really good, but like he has moments of his own that are genuinely funny in this movie. Like the I'm moving so slow.
You can't see me.
Yeah. Oh man, it's very, very good. But yeah, so they get to Titan.
So we see they get to Titan, and then Doctor Strange was like, "All right, let me just pop into the future real fast and see if there's any possible way that we win." And he gave some ridiculous number of how many times that like
it was 14 million something.
Yeah, of times that they lose, but there's one chance. There's one chance that they win. And so when it comes down to it, he ends up giving Thanos the Time Stone, which everyone's like, "What the fuck? What the fuck?" But you have to remember,
it's the only choice. It's
because he says it so calmly too. And when he fades away, he says like he had to set it in motion.
Yeah.
So that was deliberate. Like, so we know that Thanos had to destroy half the universe. That just had to happen, or they'll never actually defeat him.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that works. I don't know what he saw, but that's like literally our only like shred of hope.
Well, we know what movie is coming next before the next Infinity War or Avengers movie, which takes place in the 90s.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, so Mind Gem. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay, having to watch Vision die twice.
That was rough.
Was rough.
And it
was really rough because the first time he accepted his fate, it wasn't painful for him. He said he only felt hurt because he had to have the Scarlet Witch because she was created. Her powers were created from the Mind Gem. Only her powers could destroy it. It was a whole thing. They were connected.
Yeah.
You know, like it was a big moment for them. But then when Thanos reverses time and goes and just rips it out of his forehead, it's just devastating. Like, I know we just saw him die, and we're like, for some reason we were okay with it because it was her, and we knew they had to do it, but just watching him just take the thing out of his forehead was just like, and then he just immediately shuts off. It's too much. It's just too much.
It's actually like probably the most brutal violence in any of the Marvel movies. But there's a workaround in that he's a robot.
Yeah, and that we know prior to Thanos retrieving the Mind Stone that Shuri was working on
Yeah.
disconnecting it from him and reconnecting his systems to himself, because it's not just the Mind Stone, it's also Jarvis, it's also Ultron, it's
And
also
that's what I was saying
yeah.
earlier, where they actually reference Age of Ultron that I didn't
Mm-hmm.
expect them to, because most people found it underwhelming.
But I feel like they referenced it because it was important to remember
Yeah,
that that's where Scarlet Witch came from and that she was created by the Mind Gem, because that's why it made sense for her to be
yeah,
able to destroy it. Which tied back to Age of Ultron, where we were introduced to her. So,
yeah. I liked
so
I
many
liked what they did
tiebacks.
with once Vision. I'm gonna say go off. He goes offline. That's a nicer way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
But once that happens and he goes all gray, which I believe is sort of a reference to in the comics. He was all white at one point. But yeah, that moment. Thankfully, earlier in the movie, they set up those two characters better than they have been in any of the other movies, which was what I was saying before, because the payoff is so good. And even though like
Mm-hmm.
we knew Thanos already had the time stone, we already knew he was just gonna do that. But
I didn't know he was gonna do that. I did not. I did
oh
not
really?
know. I
I
didn't know. I thought that was like the hope that he wasn't gonna have all of them, and that's how come they were gonna be able to stop him. I thought for a second there when she destroyed it that was in the poof. I
yeah.
thought that was it. I thought that was it. For some reason, my head went, oh, there's a chance.
You extended your disbelief.
I
But
know. Aren't you
yeah,
proud of me?
for once.
For once, I could be immersed in a movie without trying to figure out the ending. For
um,
once, I was praying that the ending I thought was going to happen didn't happen.
and the thing is, like the very end of this movie, I couldn't have called that the way that they actually like cut the end of the movie was gonna happen that way. I didn't think they were gonna Empire Strikes Back it that hard. Um,
No, I didn't think so either.
but the which I suppose makes complete sense with every single movie in Phase 2 and a decent amount of them in Phase 3 all having Empire Strikes Back references in them. But yeah, once we're going through that thing and like when Wanda jumps out and leaves Vision while he's being worked on and like finally jumps down and joins the battle, and Okoye is just like, why the hell was she up there this whole time? Like that's how I felt with Scarlet Witch leading into those moments. I was like, why has she been on the sidelines this whole time? Like, look at how fucking awesome she could have been this whole time.
Oh my god,
Um,
people in my showing cheered when what's her name from like the Black Order, I don't know, they don't have names, was like she had Scarlet Witch on the ropes
yeah,
and she's like, you're gonna die alone, and then Black Widow comes up and is like, she's not alone. And
yeah,
her and Okoye and like the three women warriors like kick this person's ass.
yeah. Which was like, it's a little bit of that in Black Panther, which was nice, and then like
Mm-hmm.
actually like sort of having that multiple parts of the franchise come together to showcase that was really fucking cool.
I think it was important to have Black Widow come and back her up too, because she felt like when we last left her in Civil War, she was kind of like not part of the team. Like she's the one who like fucked up, and they were
Yeah,
had her on house arrest and things. So it's nice that it seems like in addition to her relationship with Vision developing over this time, so did her relationships with the rest of the outcast Avengers.
yeah. And speaking of which,
This one,
one of my favorite things in the Wakanda sequence is when the two armies start running at each other,
mm-hmm,
and Cap and Black Panther are just both leading the charge.
mm-hmm,
Um, basically on your lefting each other,
mm-hmm.
just to try to be the first one to take any damage. That was one of like that was the yep, that is the quintessential aspect of those two characters, like expertly portrayed. Like, they are the first to lay themselves on the line to protect others, and I adored that.
There are also two military men, if you think about it, because Black Panther leads Wakanda, and Steve Rogers is an army veteran, so it kind of also makes sense for them to be leading in that sense. There's one thing I want to mention, though, before I forget, and it has to do with everybody fading away. The only people that are left are the original Avengers and a couple Guardians, because I think we just need them for tying to the galactic universe.
Only one original Guardian, too.
Only Rocket, but like...
But
at
it's
the
him
core,
and Nebula, and then the original Avengers, yeah.
The original Avengers, so everyone else fell to the wayside, including S.H.I.E.L.D., at the very end.
Yeah.
But I thought that was important because it makes me think that the next film is going to take it all the way back to the first Avengers with the core group. Because they mentioned Clint, who's not there. But I'm going to imagine that...
By the way, I like the workaround of... wait, where is Hawkeye? Where is Ant-Man and all these posters? Well, they're not in the movie.
I guess theoretically it's a good workaround, though. Like, they took deals because they have families. And they do. They have children.
Yeah. No, I'm perfectly fine with that. I just like the outside aspect of it where everyone's like, where's Hawkeye? Why isn't Hawkeye in these posters? It's like, well, he's just not in the movie.
But I think we're treating it as like one movie, forgetting there's like a second one, or because it was just so much movie. But I think that's going to be important. He's going to be important in the next one because the core group's going to be back together.
Yeah, so
bringing it all the way back around again.
To go on the outside of the actual like in use stuff, like I've talked about it before on the show. There's behind the scenes photos of them reshooting parts from the Battle of New York where Captain America is in his Avengers 1 costume and Ant-Man is there. So there's obviously like time travel stuff going on. We'll see. I'm curious what the timeline is like for Ant-Man. I'm assuming it's going to be like it leads into the events of this movie. There's a good theory by a coworker of mine also that was like, well, if he goes into the microverse and he comes back out, time works differently when you're in the microverse. So that could be it, or it could be more like generic time travel related. But yeah, it's the stuff with Ant-Man and Hawkeye, I'm sure is going to be pretty interesting. Because
I feel like not everyone's going to come back. And I think that's where it leaves room for other characters.
Yeah.
To be, because I imagine where they're gonna have it's Ant-Man and the Wasp is the next film, and I imagine that they're probably gonna have Wasp then in this following movie. Right. And speaking of new characters, for those who don't know, because my mom didn't, because she immediately called me and was like, "What the hell was that last scene? Please explain."
Oh, Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and she's like, "Who's Captain Marvel? Who's he?" And I'm like, "Who is she?" And she's like, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, "Oh yeah." Well, and so I've been doing a lot of explanation about Captain Marvel.
In theory, who is he could also be the question too. Not this version necessarily, but she wasn't wrong in what she said and what she asked.
No. I'm like, it's Brie Larson, Mom. It's Brie Larson.
Star of Kong Skull Island.
It's kind of funny. I'm actually, because I'm going to say it with my coworkers on Wednesday, I'm at lunchtime, I'm hosting an Infinity War primer to help anyone who has outstanding questions about the MCU and bring them up to speed before the film. I feel like I should make a presentation.
I love that. PowerPoint. I love that the New Yorker posted an article that was like, this film relies heavily on knowledge from before. Like, you can't go into this movie just willy-nilly. It's like, no shit. And it reminded me of the fact that, like, when I may have told this story on the show before too, that when some friends and I would watch new episodes of Lost, like as they would air, we watched through the first 4 seasons, and all of a sudden my roommate decided to say, "Hey, I'm going to watch an episode with you guys." It was the season 4 finale, and the island disappeared. He was like, "What the fuck?" It's like, yeah, no, there's some weird shit with this island, man. You just walked into a whole thing. But But it was just reminding me of that. I was like, yeah, no kidding. There's been 18 movies before this to like set all of this up. And even if it's not the full 10 years setting it up, it's since the first Avengers. And that's so yeah. So there's been 6 years.
No, because you still need to get the Red Skull reference and the Tesseract information. You would need Captain America First Avenger. Yeah. So yeah, so, I almost want to like go through. I almost want to go through and be like, you need to see this one, but you don't need to see this one. You need to see this one, but you don't need to see this one.
I wish there was a distilled down version of a couple of movies, because obviously Thor: The Dark World has stuff you need to watch, but also maybe only 45 minutes of that you need to watch.
Yeah, like you need to know that like Loki fake died and that what the ether is.
Although the fake dying thing, I don't think you have to worry about, because that gets recapped in Ragnarok.
Oh, true.
The Aether, you probably need a little bit of kind of.
Well, I was just thinking when Thor's on the ship and he's like, well, he's been dead before.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, so to go back to, I was saying about Zoe Saldana's acting and how I think it's some of the best in the movie. I hands down think the best acting in the movie, again, is a moment when a kid is just a kid. And Peter Parker is sensing that he is evaporating.
Oh God.
It reminded me of in Spider-Man Homecoming when he's under the rubble and he's just got that like desperate yelp, just calling out to nobody. It felt so similar to that again.
It broke my heart. Like I couldn't. That was the part that like really choked me up when he's like hugging Tony and being like, I don't want to go. I'm not ready. I don't want to go.
Yeah.
Because not only is like his, he knows what's happening because of his Spidey sense, but he's a kid, to your point.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the same as like someone who's been a warrior on the front lines for how many years, like Bucky, for instance.
Yeah.
Right? Not saying that Bucky's like ready to die, but like he probably thought he was going to die about 600 times already.
Yeah, he's not ready to die, but he knows he could.
Yeah, it's like it's a different, and I don't think even with Tony keeps trying to like tell him this. Like I don't think Peter really gets like that he could die necessarily.
I think
he still has a little bit of that.
Finally realizes it when he's like, after Tony thinks that he has Peter going back down to Earth, and he goes in as the doors are closing, and he goes, "Oh, I should have stayed on the bus."
He's one of those, like, he has the teenage invincibility factor. Like,
yeah.
Oh, I'm going to live forever, like, oh, I'm good. But, like, in that moment, he clearly, like, it's like it all comes full circle, and he knows, like, this is it.
Well, and on top of that, I also flashed to Homecoming, and when he and Ned are discussing him being Spider-Man, and Ned asks like, does May know, and he mentions no, she's been through too much, I don't want to dump this on her. Like in my head I'm like, oh fuck, Aunt May. The whole time.
Right, because she doesn't even know where the fuck he is, because they think Tony's missing, so she must think he's missing. As far as she knows,
he's on the bus still. And yeah, it's brutal. That is an absolutely brutal scene. That was the moment that I like really broke a bit. Like the rest of it, I was so tense that like the Gamora stuff, I felt like I should have probably welled up a bit, but I didn't, just because everything in the movie up to that point had me so tense. But that just, I mean, Spidey's my dude. I mean, the background on my lock screen on my phone is him swinging with sandwiches the dog. I mean, come on. Poor sandwiches. Yeah. And like that's the stuff with Tony is devastating as well, because he's alone. Like he's with Nebula, but like he's alone.
Well, the other thing too is we all had our predictions over who was gonna die, whose contracts were up, and they fucking erased all the new people.
Yeah. Well, and on
So
top of that, they almost gave us my prediction of Tony eating it, because he got that.
that's what I thought. That's what I thought. I thought
Yeah.
that was the moment. He was gonna eat it right there, but no. Tony makes it and Peter doesn't. And
Yeah.
neither does Stephen Strange, and neither does Star-Lord. And we already know about Gamora, and neither does fucking T'Challa is out.
And we didn't
Bucky
even
is
talk about the
Falcon
fact that
out.
like the responsibility of the finger snap, a lot of that's on Peter Quill. I'm not saying that in a blame way, because he reacted probably the way that any of us would have reacted if the person that you loved, you found out that they killed them, especially like his track record of reacting emotionally in those moments. From the first time we meet him as a little boy, he reacts emotionally and runs away. Later on in the first movie, when he takes hold of the Power Stone and has a vision of his mother, he's reacting emotionally to win that battle. And then you go to Guardians 2, and that's not even a word. But he reacts emotionally to finding out that Ego killed his mother. Like immediately just start shooting him, not even a word. And then once he breaks his Walkman, like the one real tie to his mother that he still has, and gives one of the best lines in the history of the MCU. You shouldn't have killed my mom and crushed my Walkman. He has this track record of doing this, so it shouldn't surprise anybody that he would do this. And like, there was an article on Screen Rant today that came out that was like, Peter Quill is the worst hero in Infinity War, because I was like, no, he's just human. Like, this has nothing to do with him being a hero or not. He's just reacting to what he just found out, and that is what he tends to do. And then once everything, like, basically right before he fades away, is when he's like, oh no, did we lose? And you can sort of see it in his eyes that he's like, oh fuck, I regret that decision to just do that. But it's like, if it's in someone's nature, they're just going to do what they normally would do.
We can't really blame him anyway, because Strange gave him the Time Stone for a reason. So he wouldn't have even had everything if it, like,
we know that, but the characters don't necessarily know that. So yeah.
Speaking of the Infinity Gauntlet, it looks like it's fucking done. That took a lot out of it.
When Thor struck it.
No. Like, after Thanos snapped his fingers, when he's sitting in
when
his
he snapped
utopia.
his fingers, it was as he was getting electrocuted too. So I think it's a combination.
Because it looks like it's like pretty Dunskies over there.
It's pretty fucked up, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. Like, I'm sure the stones obviously still have their power, but I wonder if he's able to wield it the same way.
Right.
Because I imagine you don't just get to obliterate half the universe and just like do that like on the reg.
Yeah. So, talking about that, we should mention, because I said how it ends, and so you start to see all the heroes fade away, or a good portion of them, and it cuts to Thanos, basically retired on a farm, and like in the comics, his armor is on a scarecrow, but he is just looking out at what he essentially recreated, and just fucking fades to black. It just fades to black.
And no mid-credit scene either.
Yeah, I was actually...
They make you fucking sit with that.
I was under the impression that there wasn't going to be any post-credit scenes. Because it's cool what they did, but I think it would have been even more emotionally effective if they just did nothing.
I
just
think they had
to
already
drive home how
crushed.
serious it was.
Well, I think they had already like crushed us so much. They had to give us like, in case we weren't like tying all the Doctor Strange time shit together. They had to give us like
a
a
pinch of hope.
little,
Yeah,
a pinch of hope that we don't really know about yet,
yeah,
right? Because like for the unfamiliar with the comics and whatever, you don't know what Captain Marvel means in terms of like changing the game.
yeah.
I like to just tell people she can punch through a planet, and that usually kind of like sets the tone.
Yeah. And she's got one of the coolest uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what are some of the like the character moments that you really dug on? Like certain little things that characters did that you think were like particularly great.
I liked Thor and Rocket together as an
Yep.
interesting pair.
Oh,
I love how
we didn't even talk about like Rocket and Groot and
teenage
um
Groot.
teenage Groot and how funny he is and how like stupid 13-year-old asshole he is. But then like his turnaround of seeing how hurt Thor is after the fact of trying to create Stormbreaker.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes the pommel for
Mm-hmm.
as a handle, and it's oh man, that was really good. Like, oh fuck, he's becoming who we want him to be again. He's not just a little dipshit.
Speaking of which, Peter Dinklage as a giant is fucking awesome.
Well, no, he's still a dwarf.
He's still a dwarf, but dwarves are
he
giants.
happens to be a giant dwarf, yes. In his severely over-exaggerared voice.
Yes.
Peter be big.
Well, speaking of exaggerated voices, when Star-Lord starts trying to talk like Thor.
Yeah, that was
everyone,
really good.
when they find Thor and they're all like, "You're a dude, but this is a man. I've never seen him. What did they call him? A pirate angel?"
Yeah, I think that was. Oh no, it was like the offspring of a pirate and an angel or something like that.
I think Rock is like, "I'm going with the pirate angel."
I think some of the best Star-Lord stuff is him interacting with Thor and just sort of like trying to have a machismo off, and like Thor is obviously the more secure out of them because he's like sort of the way you think he's gonna react when he finds out that Gamora is the adopted daughter of Thanos. You think he's gonna be like, "What the fuck?" And he's just like, "I know, families can be hard."
He's like, "My dad imprisoned my sister now."
And then just calling Groot and Rocket Tree and Rabbit. Like, oh man. Like, obviously, like, Ragnarok and this are, like, the best versions of Thor, at least in the movies. So it's like, God, I'm so glad they went all in on that.
But even when, like, another, like, good moment, too, when you said Ragnarok, I thought of it, is when Bruce sees Natasha for, like, the first time.
Yeah.
Because he's been gone for all these, and he doesn't know what happened in Civil War. He doesn't know any of this stuff. And
This is awkward.
we only get a little bit of Hulk in this. It's mostly Bruce, and just when he's like, "Hey, Nat," and like it's not the time, but I think in that moment he realizes just how much has happened.
So I think with the Hulk stuff, not to gloss over that aspect of it, because I think that moment was important to connect to Age of Ultron stuff. I think the stuff with the Hulk refusing to come out has to say a lot to do with the fact that he was Hulk for what was the timeline, like 3 years, they were saying, at the time of Ragnarok. And so he basically has the mentality of a toddler. So he's basically like in his terrible twos when kids start to test boundaries and say no a lot. And add into the fact that like he's never really been beaten before. So he's scared and embarrassed by being beaten by Thanos so swiftly that he's sort of in a hidey hole and just not coming out and saying, "No, I'm not coming out of here," which I thought was actually like a super interesting way to go about that, because they could have just had him come out and smash stuff. but I think this was a genuinely like interesting way to go with it. And they're at the point with him and Banner where they know they're two different people, but they can like talk to each other, and Banner's like, we have to work things out. Like, we have to figure this out with each other because there's no, we're stuck here. So let's try to make the best out of it. Yeah, that was super cool. I do also like, the Spidey stuff when they're on Titan and he's going through the portals and just like magic with a kick. I loved. God, this version, like, I am 100% solidified in the like he is the best version of this character we have seen so far.
I love that he got the Iron Spider suit too. I
do still prefer the regular one, but
I like that it had served a purpose.
Yes, it wasn't just like here's a new suit.
It made sense for him to also have the Iron Spider suit when they were in space.
Yeah,
like he would have needed
to be able to
something
breathe,
more.
Yeah, I do like that. It's always going to be a bummer for me because I love the comic book version of the Iron Spider costume, particularly the Michael Turner stuff from the Civil War variant covers. I really adore it. It's just mostly that scarlet red with the gold spider and the gold eyes and the gold legs that come out of his back. Like
he had the gold legs though.
He did, but I just mean like the just the two colors is the simplicity of it. It's the simplicity of that is similar to the simplicity of like why the black suit looks so good. But it was also just announced recently that the homemade costume and the MCU Iron Spider costume are coming into the Spider-Man PS4 game, and so I'm pumped about that. Although I feel like the Iron Spider costume would probably be pretty overpowered for, like, street thugs. But, yeah. Man, yeah. I'm trying to think of some of the other... Oh, the balance stuff. Like, the literal on-screen representation of balance stuff that they did, where when Thanos was picking up Gamora, and he pulls out that double-edged blade and shows how perfectly balanced it is, and you need to be right in the middle in order to get. It's like, it's all right there. Like, they're not hiding his motivation from the get-go. So yeah, there is
no, and that's actually why he destroyed Gamora's home planet in the first place. And like, he's like, I didn't rescue you from. He's like, I rescued you, and she's like, no, you didn't. He's like, you were starving. He's like, so she was like living in poverty.
Yeah.
And so he didn't see it as like, he wasn't like destroying it for the sake of destroying it, which is kind of what our previous thoughts about Thanos were, that he just destroys worlds. And that's what she said too. But like, he was like, do you know what like your planet's like now? It's thriving. Like, people live there now. Yeah.
And in that scene, oh my God, his helmet in that scene is like the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen. Like, Thanos has always been one of those characters that I'm like, I get that he's like super powerful and blah blah blah, but he looks doofy.
He does, because
and that version of him
does look like a giant raisin.
Yeah,
or doesn't Star-Lord call him Grimace?
Calls him Grimace and Nutsack. And he also Rocket calls Groot a D-hole. So he uses my insult of dickhole. Like, nice, awesome. Yeah, some of the insults in this are very, very good. He calls Ebony Maw, Tony calls Ebony Maw Squidward.
Oh my God, that was so funny.
That was good.
That was so funny. He was pretty terrifying. Why is it like the more evil you get, the less of a nose you have?
It's quite Voldemort-y.
Yeah, like, why is there some sort of rule, like, once you go into, like, the dark side, like, you don't get a nose? What is it about noses that, like, signify all that is good in the world?
All good relies in the olfactory sense.
Right? Like, okay, It
represents them not stopping to smell the roses.
I see.
Yeah.
No, I really like, there's just something about, like...
Because it's just
like,
creepy. When you take that, like, legitimately, when you like take a nose off of somebody's face, it automatically makes it look absolutely fucking weird because there's no balance to it anymore. So
It's the I got your nose in a literal sense.
yeah. Oh, also, Tobias Funke from Arrested Development is in this movie.
Wait, where was he? Because I saw that at the end of the credits, like that was used with permission. Blah blah
Yeah.
blah.
So it's not David Cross. They painted a different person. But when they're in the recreated version of the collector's collection, he's in one of the cages.
I didn't even see that.
I didn't see it at first either. I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for it afterwards.
So wait, so does that mean he has a Never Nude in his collection?
Apparently, he could have all of the dozens. Well, I mean, even in Civil War, the staircase truck was in the background of the airport too. So, yeah, that's a pretty nice little Easter egg. There was so much going on in this movie that I had a hard time like worrying about trying to pick out Easter eggs. So I didn't really go too ham with that stuff yet.
Yeah, I didn't either. Oh, I just thought of another thing I liked.
Mm-hmm.
When Thanos stabs Tony, the music cuts. And that's also why I thought he was going to eat it right then and there.
Yeah.
Which was a nice kind of throwback to The Last Jedi when
the hyperspace.
Yeah. I love the use of silence. In fact, there's only like really one song in this movie other than like the score. Because when you looked at the end, there was like literally. It was
Rubber Band Man by
I
forget the name of the band, the S something, I don't know.
Because you can't have Guardians without like some sort of jam.
Then that's what I was saying before with like the end credit scene of like making for dramatic effect, because it actually sort of brings back when 24 started. If a main character ate it. And like they always had they would cut to the end of the episode and it would be the beeping countdown of a digital clock.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a countdown, but it would be silent. And so in my head, I was like thinking of it the same way of like maybe they're not gonna do an end credit scene because like for that exact reason of like that's their countdown clock from 24.
Or at the very end it says the original Avengers will appear in.
Oh no, I love the big middle finger of Thanos will return.
Mm-hmm.
That is, it's so good. And like working in a movie theater, hearing people's reaction at the end of the movie has been absolutely astounding. Because
well, did they think he was just gonna go into like eternal retirement now? Like he's done, he did his thing.
Well, it's not even in reaction.
Finally,
to that,
I can take advantage of my timeshare.
Yeah. Boca Raton. Yeah, not
magically,
even.
Boca Raton is still there, huh?
He's a big fan of Dashboard, so. But yeah, the fact that like the last 10 minutes, like everybody fading, and then it just cuts to him, and then it just cuts to black. I don't think people are used to seeing a movie like Empire. Kind of does this, but like we all know what comes after Empire, so. Mm-hmm. I don't think people are used to having this sort of open-ended finish to a movie.
Not our generation.
Yeah, and so everybody's kind of like, what the fuck? Like what?
Even when they go through all the acting credits and then they have the title and the title fades away.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, it really happened, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, because I think does it have the title card at the beginning?
No.
Yeah,
I think
there's no title. It just opens on the ships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
It just goes through the Marvel thing, and I like how they did the 10 in it with the Marvel intro.
I like that logo, but it's never going to be the same as the pages flipping for me. Nothing's ever going to live up to that.
That's true. But I liked how they worked in the 10.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think we got a decent amount on Infinity War.
It's a lot of movie. This was going to be a long episode.
Yeah. We did want to do something to sort of call this as like a finish to 10 years, even though it's going to keep going, obviously. So, we want to do a little bit of a ranking. You had some trouble.
I did. I did have some trouble because it's like there were some like I don't even know how to rank them because usually like they're always like it's like naming my top of my tops.
Yeah.
So we're doing like a top 6, but it's like I have you know what it is? It's like I know.
Or do you want to do the ones that you have, and then I'll just run. I already have mine all listed out. I can run through my list after instead of going back and forth.
No, why don't you run through your list and I'll agree or disagree.
Okay.
I think that's the easiest way because I feel like we'll have similar ones.
To the top ones, yeah.
But like my problem is I know what my favorites are, but I'm having trouble ranking them.
Well, ranking brings this weird like I have to figure out the like it's good and my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like when it's just this is one of my favorite ones, it's just that I enjoyed it the most.
And you separated out Avengers too.
Yeah, because I don't think it's fair to sort of like throw those in because there's so much like Civil War is still in my normal list, but like Avengers, Age of Ultron, and Infinity War I have separately. So from bottom to top, it's Age of Ultron, Avengers, and Infinity War. I think that sort of goes without saying on those ones though. But for the proper solo movies, starting at the bottom, Iron Man 2.
Wait, are you listing them all of them?
I'm gonna start. Yeah, isn't that what you just said?
Oh, I did. I thought we were just gonna do top 6.
Oh no.
I know that that's your least favorite. That's why I'm saying that. Like I know that's like that is your bottom.
Yeah. So I was gonna go through mine, and I thought you were saying you were gonna like agree or disagree as you got to the top.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do that. So I concur.
Okay.
Iron Man 2, bottom.
Thor: The Dark World next.
Yeah. Or Loki. It should have just been a Loki movie.
Yeah. And then the first Thor movie.
Really? I would have put that higher.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the first Thor movie.
The original movies actually aren't as high up as I thought they were going to be once I actually sat down with this. Mm-hmm. This one you're going to disagree on because I know you liked it a lot more than I did. Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I liked it visually.
Yeah.
But I would have put Thor above Doctor Strange.
Oh, but Doctor Strange still would have been kind of low.
Still higher. I just feel like there's still more bad movies I would have put 10.
Then The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, see, I would have put that lower.
Yeah. Then Iron Man 3.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then Captain America: The First Avenger.
Mhm.
And then Ant-Man.
You would put Ant-Man over Captain America?
The First Avenger, yeah. Because the next two Caps. Also, Ant-Man is just like it's a palate cleanser for everything else. It works so well like in the middle ground, and we're roughly in the middle of the list.
Okay.
Then, and I think this is going to be low for you, Civil War.
No, I liked Civil War.
No, well, for where it is on my list, though.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 9 from the bottom.
Okay.
And then Iron Man 1.
Mhm.
And then Thor Ragnarok.
Mhm.
And then Guardians 1.
Mm.
And then Black Panther.
Mhm. I would have put Guardians is at my tippity top.
Yeah. And then The Winter Soldier.
That is my top. Winter Soldier is my top.
And then Guardians Volume 2.
Oh, see, I would have put that down further.
And Spider-Man Homecoming. So I rewatched both Guardians fairly recently.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them were emotionally affecting. But I think the amount of character development in Guardians 2 just like pushed it that much further for me. But yeah, it's all of those top ones from Thor Ragnarok up. They're very, very small amounts between each ranking on those.
So Spider-Man Homecoming is your favorite, and Winter Soldier is still mine.
Yeah. So what was your actual like 6?
Winter Soldier's number 1.
Uh-huh.
Guardians number 1.
Yeah.
The sec is number 2. Number 3. Well, I was putting in the Avengers too. Would be the first Avengers movie.
Okay.
Number 4 would be probably Iron Man 1, followed by Cap, followed by Thor 1. Well, no, I don't know, because Ragnarok is up there too. I don't know. I have to think about it. My top 3 though were Winter Soldier, Guardians, and Avengers.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, Avengers 1 over Infinity War 2?
I feel like it's too soon. I feel like I don't know how I can put a movie like even in the order that blew up all the other movies.
Yeah, all right.
Like I'm not ready. I'm not even ready. Like I feel like I'm writing an obituary for the MCU right now, even making this list.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
It is. I feel like actually maybe I should do that.
It's an obsidian wall in Washington.
Maybe that would be a fun exercise for me to do for our blog, which I never write anything for, is to write an obituary to the MCU.
Well, not to announce anything, but we're working on something with where you can find our stuff right now. So
yes, so it might be worthwhile for me to be like. The Marvel Cinematic Universe was smashed into oblivion today.
But yeah, it's a good movie. After all that, it's a good movie. It's
survived by Captain Steve Rogers, Tony Stark, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of how to write this like an obituary, but that was obviously very spoilery.
Well, yeah. It's gonna have to put a big warning on that one.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've had our therapy session, and we can call it for the day. So, yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you all for listening. It's been a pretty good month over here at the Push Your Glasses Up podcast.
Yeah. If you're listening to this, please talk to us on the Twitters and tell us what your top Marvel movie is and where Infinity War fits. We'd love to know what you think.
Yeah, we are we're at Push Glasses Up on Twitter. I'm at Michael R. O'Leary. You are,
and I'm at that Reena girl.
So you can do that if you want. Leave a nice little review on iTunes for us. That'll always help it out.
Yeah.
If you're digging what we're doing, keep listening and share if you can, because we always want to bring some more people in and have a nice little community around us. So thank you for doing all that stuff, guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening to my foul language and dick jokes, coworkers. I have a number of people at work that listen to this, and that makes me kind of uncomfortable, but also happy.
We got to stay on brand. All right, we will see you next time, guys.
Bye.